Hello and welcome to another episode of the Executive Hub, the show that helps you grow your business with simple tips and strategies from successful entrepreneurs. My guest today is Olin Hyde. Welcome, Olin.
Thank you so much for having me. Really pleased to be here, Mustafa.
Great to have you on the show. And we're talking about the secrets to retire happy, healthy, and wealthy. So stay tuned if you know someone that could benefit from that topic. Send a link to them and have them join us live and or send them the link later. And if you have any questions about what we're talking about, put them in the comments of the show and we'll do our best to address it live, or after the show we'll get back to you. Let me do the proper introduction for Olin, and we're going to dive into a very interesting conversation about retiring happy, healthy, and wealthy. Olin Hyde is the managing partner at Caffeinated LLC and venture partner at Impala Ventures. He is a serial entrepreneur with 8 startups under his belt and 4 exits, including LeadCrunch, one of the first companies to bring generative AI to the market, and ranked number 31 on the Inc. 5000. Olin now spends his time investing in high-growth teams, serving on boards, and is skiing 70 days a year. We're going to talk more about that. He splits his time between San Diego and the Swiss Alps with business and philanthropic interest in both. Olin, how's your day so far?
It's been great.
Fantastic. Whereabout are you?
I live in San Diego, California, and I spend quite a bit of time in the Valais region of the Swiss French Alps. So I spend a lot of time in Europe, and we're in the process of possibly moving there. So we love San Diego, but we also love Europe.
Oh yeah, Swiss Alps are awesome, and it's actually on my list to ski there. I'm big into skiing too, so
come visit.
I should definitely come out and visit.
I'm really pleased to say that we had 35 guests this winter at our place in Switzerland. So we had
you have a place out there?
Yeah, so we had a lot of friends and family come and visit. It was really phenomenal, and it's really special when we get people with kids come, so that the kids get to experience it. And so I love Swiss culture. I think that it's one of the most interesting countries in the world.
Yes,
everything's organized, everything's clean. There's a lot of respect for each other. There's a reason why it is one of the happiest countries on earth.
My dad has been there, but I haven't. It is definitely on my list of skiing the Alps and visiting the Switzerland.
Yeah, so the ski area that we're in is called Cat Val, which means 4 valleys in French, and it's famous for the town of Verbier, and it's very well known as a free ride sport capital. So the World Free Ride Tour has their championships there every year on a mountain called Bec de Roses, which is right above. And I'm actually involved with a nonprofit in Switzerland where we're creating the World Backcountry Tour, or the Backcountry World Tour is probably the best way to say it. That's the way we say it in French. And the idea is to be able to connect people with the mountains and nature and really understand how extreme skiing works. And it's really an amazing thing to watch these young athletes do some just incredible superhuman feats off of cliffs.
Love it. Yeah, I think we do it here in our backyard. They do it at Kicking Horse Ski Resort in Golden, BC.
They do.
And I used to do volunteer ski patrol at Kicking Horse years ago.
Okay. Yeah,
and it's a hell of a hill. It's lovely.
Redelec is one of my favorite places to ski in that area, and also I absolutely love Revelstoke. Revelstoke is just a wonderful mountain.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, Revy, you get like waist deep powder. And January, February, it's beautiful. It is.
Yeah, and you Canadians are not afraid of steep hills. It seems like you ski Canada and ski Switzerland and come to America, it feels very flat and small. Whereas a place like Revelstoke's got over 5,200 feet of vertical drop, and you can do it in one run. It's just incredible.
Absolutely. You got I know Kicking Horse. You could ski from White Bull on the top to the bottom. It takes about half an hour, 40 minutes to get from top to bottom. And it's nice, long, steep mountain. There's a lot of double blacks and chutes. And like you said, we love it.
So. Yeah, I love Canada. You've got some great skiing up there. Great people. It's a good vibe. It's a little bit more relaxed than America. I think one of the problems with American skiing is it's just gotten so expensive. You
Is
know,
it?
oh, it's $300 a day for lift tickets, and that changes the vibe of the mountain. In Switzerland, it's about
100%.
$100 a day. In Switzerland, in Canada, I think it's probably about $150 a day.
Yeah.
So it changes the sport when only the rich can do it. And skiing's
Yes.
never been cheap, but I really like a ski environment where people aren't worried about every single second being so
Yes.
precious that they can actually breathe. They can take time to go to lunch. They can actually enjoy the mountain, and they don't feel obligated to go ski when the conditions aren't great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think affordability there is a big deal. Um, yeah, I mean, like you said, you don't want to go out there and worry about like making every penny worth of your day pass,
That's
and
when you
just
get hurt.
without getting taking a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. So let's dive into it. Olin, what is your story?
So I'm a semi-retired serial entrepreneur. I've started 8 companies, had a few exits along the way, and I'm entering the later chapters of my life. I turned 60 this summer, and so I've become an advisor and an investor rather than an entrepreneur. And what's really interesting to me is helping the guys like me, or young men and women like me that are 20 years younger, grow and build their businesses. And that's been really an exciting journey. And it's something that kind of I stumbled into by people calling and say, hey, we want you to work for us, or hey, we want to hire you as a consultant. And it said no for a long time because I was pretty happy doing nothing. And then I started doing this consulting work, usually through private equity firms, to help grow their companies. And it's just turned into a really remarkable life. I hope everyone can enjoy life as much as I do at some point in their life. When I was growing companies, it was very hard to find the right coaches and mentors. And so that's kind of what I want to become now. I want to become that coach and mentor to help others, achieve their dreams.
Love it. Love it. So, what was there like a specific moment or that sparked your or you to start a company?
Yeah, I was 25 when I started my first company, and I was
Mhm.
working as an analyst for a strategy consulting firm. It's now Accenture. And I was the junior guy that was sent to figure out real estate holdings for a company called Firestone. They made, the tire centers. And Firestone was bought by a Japanese company called Bridgestone. And
Yes.
my job was to figure out how to do the real estate integration. And I was 25 and I barely knew how to spell real estate.
Mhm.
And one of the first things I discovered was fraud. I discovered that there was fraudulent transactions happening, that someone was buying real estate that was failing an environmental impact study, and they were then selling it to their brother-in-law. So, of course, I reported it. It was prosecuted. That person was taken out of the organization, and there was legal consequences for that person. And I went to my boss and said, "Hey, I think I can build software to prevent this from ever happening." And he said, "Shut up and get back to work." So I interpreted that as go build it in my spare time. And I did. And Accenture became one of my first customers. And that company went on to sell to 50 of the Fortune 100 within 18 months of product launch. So we went from 0 to 10 million of revenue in less than 2 years. And that was back in the early 90s. So that was a long time ago. And that was really the moment that I thought, hey, the chance to be autonomous was really important to me. The chance to be able to say, okay, I can control my future by my own hard work. And that happened principally because I had a boss that didn't want me to innovate. So it was a bit of rebellion, a bit of defiance, if you will, that came through. I think that's pretty common among entrepreneurs. I think that story where someone is told no and they do it anyway is kind of a hallmark of success, future success for people. So I encourage
Yeah.
a little bit of rebellion goes a long way.
Oh yeah, I think that's part of entrepreneurship, the rebellion and innovation, especially if you're starving and hungry, right, which I
Yeah.
think brings a lot of innovation to say, you know what, I need to figure something out.
Years
And if you're
later, I
under
had an
pressure.
interesting experience where a politician asked me to go do volunteer work in a maximum security prison. And there was about 20 of us or so that were entrepreneurs, and we went down to one of the most notorious prisons in California. And we went to cell block C, which is where they put all the really bad guys. These were people that were murderers and rapists and things like that. And they blindfolded us. They paired us up so that we had 20 prisoners along one row and 20 entrepreneurs. And they blindfolded us and they asked us a question. Did something like this happen to you in the past? Were you abused as a child? Did you have this terrible experience? And if the answer was yes, everybody took a step forward. And at the end, there's 20 prisoners and 20 entrepreneurs 1 foot apart staring at each other. And the insight was entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily come from having a happy, functional childhood. It comes from a series of factors, including having the right breaks, getting lucky, not getting in trouble for everything you did. And the prisoners, it was really a eye-opening experience. And I've had that conversation with many of the entrepreneurs I've worked with, saying, hey, it's okay if you come from a weird background, use that to your advantage. And pretty soon, almost everybody I've worked with has had something really dysfunctional in their background. So I like to say that entrepreneurship is a personality flaw. It's something to overcome. It's not something to aspire to. Because a lot of times being an entrepreneur is so hard and so difficult that if you're healthy and well, you just won't do it. You'll go get a regular job. It's just easier.
Absolutely. And it's not for everybody.
It's not. And I don't think it's necessarily something to celebrate either. I think that, what's to celebrate is when we make the world better for those around us. And, that's really what I hope we all aspire to get to at some point, is like, let's plant trees for the future as opposed
100%.
to just doing things for ourselves. And a lot of the press around entrepreneurship or the hype is, creating the future and a lot of self-serving type of things like let's go get rich. And I don't think that's really what it's about. I think that that's a great consequence if it happens, but what it's really about is people. And that's ultimately what our lives are about, is making the lives of others better.
What do you mean by it's about people?
Life is a team sport. And there's very few things that we're going to do in life that we can do only by ourselves. And so my journey in entrepreneurship is I was frustrated with my boss, and I thought they were a little bit of an idiot, and I thought I was smarter, and I thought I could do better on my own. And pretty soon I ran into brick walls, right? And the way you overcome those brick walls is through teamwork. And you realize that maybe my boss wasn't that dumb. Maybe I was a little bit dumb. Maybe I was the fool that didn't listen. And I think when we go into business, the single most best predictor of a company's success is the team and the team dynamics. And it comes down to vision, values, and culture. The vision is what everyone wants to talk about, which is how do we change the future? What is the world we're creating? The values are how we relate to each other. What are the things that we place importance upon? And culture is how we communicate and how we resolve our conflicts. And this is something where if we really start a company around vision, value, and culture, it doesn't really matter what the problem or the customer is. That combination is so powerful, it will find a market. It will find a solution. It will find opportunities. It will become successful. And if we measure success, both in terms of the development of capital, money, and the development of people, we really quickly start to get a blend where vision, values, and culture become the defining characteristics of a company's success. And it's something that most boards of directors don't spend much time on. It's something that can be very frustrating to people that are very goal-oriented. And it can also be a place for people to hide if they want to, if they don't really want to perform, if they just want to be what I call talkers, not doers. So it's complicated building a business. There's more than one factor. And it sounds like I might be contradicting myself by saying these two sides, but as a CEO and a founder, you really have to take a broad picture And that broad picture, if it's around development of people and doing what's best for the people, I believe it takes us to the best outcomes for capital as well.
Oh yeah. I'm with you 100% on that team aspect. Like I have a client who has 2 or 3 bad apples in his team,
Mm,
and these guys are constantly giving
yeah.
massive headache
Yeah.
to the team and the owner and the managers. And every time I talk to them, I'm like, "Hey, did you do what you were supposed to?" They're like, "Oh no, I've been dealing with
Yeah.
headaches with team members all week." And then I'm like, "Let's replace these guys." And then
Yeah.
he says, "No, well, these guys are really good at what he does, and I'm gonna, tolerate them, and I'm just gonna ignore them." That's like having a running on a flat tire and hoping to raise to like $1 billion. It's probably not gonna happen.
One bad apple can ruin the bushel,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And so,
100%.
one of the things I do now is I'm a venture partner with Impala Ventures, and we invest into principally family-owned businesses or founder-led businesses that have taken institutional money. And this plays in a little bigger ballpark than the startup. So we typically invest in companies between $8 and $20 million of EBITDA. So these are $100 million companies. And one of the first things we look for is, are there any sacred cows? Because there's no such thing as a sacred cow in a business. The way I think of it is the CEO and the executive team are really around creating a winning team. And a winning team isn't necessarily a happy team, they're a team that is in well being. So, what's the difference between well being and happiness? Well, let's take a metaphor. Let's say we're in the military. I spent some time in the US Marine Corps, so we'll use a military example.
Sure.
Happy troops, and it's raining and cold and miserable outside, the happy troops are in their tent with a warm cup of cocoa, and they're going to fall asleep in a very warm sleeping bag. And that's happiness. A well being team is the one with their rifles pointed out into the darkness with their night vision on, suffering through the cold, waiting for the enemy. Now, when the enemy comes, the happy team is not going to be around very long. But the well-being team, the one that's in the trenches, that are prepared and waiting and ready, that's the team that's going to win. And opportunity doesn't oftentimes knock twice. You need to be ready to capture it. And if you've got underperformers on your team, it is affecting more than just their job. They interact with others. Again, life is a team sport. So the way I think of it is, we've all been underperformers at some point in our life. If we're really honest with ourselves, I have been an underperformer at times. And the best thing that could happen to me is to be taken off the team so I can think about myself and figure out, okay, how can I be a better performer in the future? And I have had the experience 4 or 5 times in the past couple years where somebody that I have dismissed off the team has contacted me and said, "Hey, I'd like to take you out to lunch." And they thanked me and said I was the best boss they've ever had, because the way we exited them out of the company, the way we took them out, was respectful, it was
Graceful.
transparent, it was honest. It was also one to say, "Hey, you're a great person, but you're not fitting into this team in the right way.
Yeah.
And here's why." One of those guys said I was the best boss ever. And the other guy, he kind of said, "Hey, I want you to join my company as an advisor." Like, this is, thank you. I take
Nice.
this as a great compliment.
Yeah.
It's really hard to have that type of um, honesty and integrity when you're talking to people.
100%.
Those are difficult conversations.
Oh yeah, I've had a similar situation where I actually helped them find another job, and they were very thankful, and it was a very sweet and easy exit. Where we're like, "Look, I'm not the right fit for you, and I'm sorry I couldn't get the most out of you for your capabilities and skills."
One of the
So it
best
was
one of the best people I've ever hired was this woman who ran customer success at one of my companies. And she was Bulgarian. That had nothing to do with why she was so amazing, but she was connected into this Bulgarian community. And a Bulgarian friend of mine was her boss, who had to let her go for a reason, and called me and said, "Hey, I had to let this woman go. She's really good at X, Y, and Z. Are you interested in talking to her?" Sure.
yeah.
Couldn't have built the company without her. Phenomenal.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Love it. So what do you do now, and who do you serve?
So I serve ambitious founders and business owners who really want to grow their business and are willing to make the tough choices to make that happen. And I typically, this is the consulting side of my life. And those are typically earlier stage companies, companies with less than $8 million of EBITDA. Because once they get to about $8 million of EBITDA, then I put on my other hat. That's the private equity investor hat, because we're deploying capital. And so those are the companies I want to buy. And the companies that I advise are the companies that I would like to set up for a future exit. And so I really enjoy working with companies that have the right cultural fit with me, the right values, and the right vision. And the only way to figure that out is to typically spend a month or so with them at no cost to figure out whether we're a good fit for each other.
Yeah.
About half the companies I do that so-called free month with turn into a multi-year engagement. And so I usually try to set expectations that a good coach only is around for 6 months or so. Less than 3 months, there's no way to really see the impact. And more than about a year feels like it's long in the tooth. You need to go on and get other coaching and so forth. But 2 of my clients have lasted 2 years.
Beautiful. Love it. And now, what are some of the typical problems that these clients have that you help them solve?
I'm all about growth. So what I'm not a good person for is just a awful turnaround. If you're losing money and everything's going to hell in a handbasket, I'm not the guy. I'm the guy for sustainable, profitable growth. And typically the problems we're solving is how to refine the go-to-market that we can identify and validate both the ideal customer and the killer use case. And the intersection of those two things is a magical point, because at that point, demand starts to generate itself to a degree. And it usually takes 6 months or so to start to really get that working to the point where it feels good. And it usually takes 2 years or so before you really get to the point where I'd call it the point of scaling, where you're past the 10 million mark.
Fantastic.
I do not work with direct to consumer. So I don't do B2C. I only do B2B, business to
Okay.
business.
Okay.
I do a lot in analytics, what now is called AI, the
Mm-hmm.
data plays, a lot in manufacturing. One of my favorite companies that I've worked with is in the oil and gas space. And I got into it because of my interest in clean energy. And I learned so much about the oil and gas industry doing this that I've actually kind of fallen in love with that industry. Although you think, okay, well, you love nature and you got into it because you wanted to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. How do you reconcile that with being in the oil and gas space? Well, oil and gas people actually care about the environment too.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's an industry that I think creates pollution. If you help them reduce
Yeah.
some of that's impactful, I guess.
Yeah, it's very the physics of energy, hydrocarbons just have so much energy density, it's not easily replaced. And if it was, we would have replaced it by now.
Oh yeah.
And you're in Calgary. That's an
Yeah.
energy capital, right? You guys have
100%.
it's incredible. And so I think the challenge for humanity is, how do we have cheap, clean, accessible power? Because you cannot have a thriving economy without inexpensive energy. That just doesn't exist, right? And so there's a couple facets to this. One is, how do we make it cheap? How do we make it clean? How do we make it accessible? How do we make it renewable? I strongly believe that we're on the path towards global renewable energy in some point in the future. Maybe it's 50 years from now. Maybe it's 100 years from now. But we cannot live without oil or petrochemicals in the meantime. Everything from the wool sweater I'm wearing to the computer that we're talking to each other on, there's an oil component to everything we do. And until we have viable alternatives to that, which I believe will, will evolve through science, we need to make it as clean as possible.
100%. 100%. Olin, give us some of the milestones that you have achieved along the way since you started.
I think one of the ones I'm really proud about is I started a company called LeadCrunch that as an idea. We originally started as a medical research company, and we had success in that. But we couldn't make money at it. So we had technical success without market success. Then we pivoted to defense contracting to do target identification and verification using big data. And that was one I just didn't like the dynamics of being a defense contractor. And so we pivoted and did the bold move of going into a commercial space of demand generation, where we did lookalike marketing for businesses that were trying to find their next customer that looked like their last customer. Kind of like the way Facebook works with lookalike marketing for consumers. And that company grew to 2.5 million of monthly revenue and became number 35 on the Inc. 5000. So our run rate was 30-ish million a year. And we were very profitable at that point. I left that company in 2021. The board and I had different visions of where it would go in the future. And so I went my way and they went their way. And I'm very proud of the work I did there. I'm very proud of the team we built. It was a phenomenal success being number 35 on the Inc. 5000.
5,000.
The one that was 34 was one of my neighbors here, a guy named Ryan Singh, who started a company called Shield AI, which I believe now is worth more than 4 billion. So we were on the right path. We were just one behind him. I think he beat me by a couple $1,000s that year. But I love to see that type of success happen. And at my stage of life, it's awesome to have other people do it because I know how hard it is to do it yourself. And I don't have those 100-hour weeks left in me.
Love it. So you talked about some what seems to be massive pivots to me, like from defense contracting to data to this to that. Tell me about that. How did you pick ideas or industries or the type of services to pivot into, and then what happened, and then how did you pick your next pivot? Because
this is going back to ancient history. I had been working in the field of AI for about 10 years, and we had developed a novel approach, what is now called generative AI. Our innovations were really around this idea of embedding. How do you take a large amount of information and represent it in a very small hash, a representation, and then understand how that relates to all of the other hashes? And that's technically it's called high dimensional spatial vectoring. And so this was at the time, a fairly exotic technology that was looking for a solution, looking for a problem, which is exactly what you don't want to be in the business as an entrepreneur. That said, one of my best friends was a medical researcher who couldn't go skiing with me because he was writing a paper. And I was like, how does it take you 9 months to write a review paper? And he said, well, we got to read all these journal articles and figure out how they're related to each other. I'm like, I think we can do that with technology. And so literally our team in not much more than a weekend built a prototype, and we ingested PubMed, which is the Public Library of Medicine, sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, and took 20 million journal articles. And unlike a Google search, he put in his entire abstract, what he wanted to write, what he thought was his provable hypothesis. And it came back with a list of articles that confirmed his hypothesis and a list of articles that discredited his hypothesis. And he used that to write a paper in a weekend that got $11 million of funding from the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation because it found a possible link between the herpes virus and type 1 diabetes. And we're like, wow, never thought of those things being connected. The machine found the connection. Maybe we should go do something big like solve cancer. So we took that prototype to 300 research institutions, including everybody you've heard about, T.D. Anderson, the Broad Institute, everybody we could think of, and a lot that we've never heard of. And we sold exactly zero. What we had created, no one wanted to buy it. Why? Because we were replacing something that was free, called a postdoc. And we made the assumption that medical research had something to do with medical discovery. Medical research is really about funding. And you fund a postdoc. You don't fund a piece of software. And so what people really wanted was software to help them get more funding, not software to help them find the answers. And
Oh,
so I went to a mentor of mine, a gentleman by the name of Marv Langston, who used to be the Undersecretary of Defense for the US, and said, I think we're going to have to shut the company down. And he's like, well, what you're doing sounds like targeting. I'm like, most AI is all about pattern recognition, and that is exactly what targeting is. It's just another name for it. He's like, well, why don't you sell it to the military? Okay, I don't know how to do that. So he introduced us to some other people. A guy named Jim Petrosini was really essential in this process. And we sold our system to Lockheed Martin in less than 3 weeks, beating Palantir and IBM Watson to win an R&D contract with Lockheed Martin. And Lockheed was awesome, but it's Lockheed and it's the government, and it moves at a pace that has nothing to do with innovation. It has to do with funding cycles and so forth. And my business partner and I looked at each other one day and said, this is not why we're mortgaging our house. We hadn't raised any money at that point. And our lead engineer had to have the tough conversation with him saying, look, I'm not sure we're going to be able to pay you. And he's like, I'll tell you what, I believe in this. How about I just get more equity? Wow. So now how do we take this thing that's targeting and it works for the military, and where else is targeting important? Well, my whole life was a problem of targeting the right customer. So can we use this technology to help companies target the right prospect?
mm-hmm.
And that's how the pivot. So the pivot was really around the core idea of targeting being applied in different places. And that gets to a basic idea of entrepreneurship, is really understanding what problem you're solving. Most people get wrapped up in their solution and think their solution is wonderful.
Yeah.
Really, how fundamental is the problem that you're solving, and who is willing to pay for that problem to be solved? Where is the pain so great that they can't ignore your solution? That's entrepreneurship.
Interesting. That's a great thing you mentioned there. Focusing on their problem, not on, because people, like you said, they fall in love with their product, and it's amazing.
I have a startup that someone asked me to be involved in, and I spent about 2 months with. And last week, I just said, I'm out. I'm out because the problem we need to solve is this tiny little problem, and a group of scientists want to solve all these other things around it, like all these other things that have entire ecosystems of solutions. Like, what they're missing is this one thing. Yes, this one thing needs these others. Those are dependencies. But if you just do this one thing really well, all these people, they're not your competitors. They're your collaborators.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't like to be directed. They lacked focus. And I said, look, guys, good luck. Hope you're successful, but I'm out. I'd rather be seen.
Yes, exactly. What would you say were some of the challenges that you faced while reaching those milestones?
Well, I think that there's so many, it's easier to classify them in groups. One is building the team is very hard. Anybody who thinks it's easy to build teams hasn't built teams or has been remarkably lucky. And building the team is not picking your friends or the people you like or the people that like you. It's more like a professional sports team. The people that play on we're going into the NBA finals right now. Whoever wins that championship team, those players didn't know each other when they got on that team. They knew of each other, but they were selected because they fit into that team and they built a relationship around being on that team. And so building the team is always hard. If you need capital, and a lot of the companies I advise, I say, look, don't raise capital. If you can avoid raising capital, do it. It's better to grow controllable where you've got complete control, because as soon as you start taking investors on, you're going to lose control. And take it from me, I've seen it. I've been on enough boards that I know how boards work, and most of the time boards are very dysfunctional. right?
Yeah.
Boards are not there to make great decisions. So when they say, oh, the board's going to help you,
Mhm.
sometimes, sometimes the help
Maybe.
isn't the help you're looking for, the help you need. It's what the board, they have their own agenda. So finding the right investors and raising money is incredibly hard. I would say one of the hardest things I ever did was being an older entrepreneur, going to Silicon Valley and raising money for AI was very difficult because everyone thought it was a joke. When AI worked, we called it software. When you were talking about pure AI plays in the mid teens, no one took it seriously. It changed around 2017, 2018. That's when it changed, but we had raised money by that point, right? So it was a little different story. By the time we came along, then they were like, well, now everyone's got AI, right? So whatever you say to an investor, they're going to find something wrong with it. And that's just the process. I think I talked to 600 investors in the journey that I had in raising about $30 million of capital. So that's a lot of investors. That's a lot of rejection. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs say, Olin, I can't raise money. Well, how many investors you talk to? 20? That's a joke. You're just getting started.
Oh yeah. Interesting. Olin, what would you say is maybe holding you or your business back right now?
Right now, I feel like nothing. I mean, I feel like I'm in a really good space.
Okay.
So I don't feel like I've got a lot of ambition now for myself. My ambition is mostly for others. I'm almost 60 years old, and I ski with guys on the World Freeride Tour. I don't do the same tricks, but I'll do similar lines to them on the similar hill. So I feel pretty good. I think
Very.
a lot of happiness has to do with physical fitness. And what was holding me back as an entrepreneur is I didn't have time for physical fitness. I had a family. I had sometimes 100-hour work weeks, and my health suffered. So I think that one of the things I would really encourage younger entrepreneurs is if we focus our time the right way, it frees up other time that we can actually live a life that involves our loved ones and our physical fitness. And I would say that if you have a choice between you have a choice of whether you're going to focus your time or not. And if you're not getting time to exercise, you're not getting time for your family, then you're not focused enough at work. And I would say that's what held me back then. At this point, you know, I feel I'm really in a great space. There's the areas that I'm working on right now is, incremental improvements in my health, but generally I'm in great shape. I work out, I have 10 hours of exercise a week. That's
Nice.
in the off season. In the on
Nice.
season of skiing, it's a lot more than that. I'm out on the slopes every day.
Very nice. Very nice. So, to your point, earlier this year in January, I started working out because I ski and hike a lot, so
Yep.
my lower body is pretty strong. But because I sit in front of a computer and I do a lot of online digital work, my upper body has been pretty weak over the past few years. And I got to a point where my both my shoulders were almost getting dislocated a few times.
Yeah.
And earlier this year, like my chiropractor is like, dude, there's nothing left on your back shoulders, and your rotator cuffs are pretty bad shape.
Mhm.
So I started working out, like going to the gym. Like the story is that I was chasing my kid, and this one time I tried to turn around and grab my kid, and my right shoulder popped out and it went back in, and I'm like, it scared the shit out of me. And then what happened was like, I got to do something about this because this is
Yeah.
not good. So we started working out, going to do and then my buddy, who is my what you might call a hiking buddy, is like, "Do you want to go lift weights?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's about time." Like he recommended it a few times. I'm like, "It's about time." And then we've been going to the gym 3 4 days a week now since January, and I could not be happier. Like
Absolutely.
like I feel great. Frustration goes out. We sweat. We do some cardio. My muscles, our upper body is in much better shape, and then it helps mentally too. What's your experience on that?
Absolutely. So a predictor of happiness and longevity, which are very closely connected, is muscle mass, grip strength, VO2 capacity. And without getting into the technical side of all of that stuff, I'm a big fan of Peter Attia. He's
Yep.
an acquaintance of mine. He was
Yep.
actually one of my best friends' coworkers at one point. So I knew Peter personally many years ago before he became a celebrity. And fitness is an individual journey. So what works for me is not going to work for you. And what
Hmm.
works for you isn't going to work for your friends. But
Yes.
in general, strength conditioning is the more difficult things that men like. It's much easier to go out and crank out a 50-mile bike ride than it is to go and do a bunch of deadlifts and pull-ups in the gym because it
Yes.
hurts, right? And so I'm a big pull-up guy. uh
Hmm.
Marine Corps is big on pull-ups. The perfect score in the Marine Corps physical fitness test is 22 pull-ups. That's the standard I hold myself to.
Nice.
And shoulders are one of those things that most men have bad shoulders or lower back issues and so forth. And a lot,
Yes.
not for me, hanging, a lot of upper body work works really well. And it actually improves my skiing quite a bit, because what's amazing about skiing is it's mostly core strength. It's mostly
Yes.
explosive rotational movements, right?
Yes.
And I don't. Do you use Carve? Do you use any of the new technology to measure your skiing?
Carve as an
Carve's
app.
a little sensor you put on your boots, and it gives accelerometers that show you how well you're skiing or not skiing.
I have no. Oh, so I do a lot of training and ski improvement clinics up
Okay.
here in Calgary because I'm a member of the Ski Instructor Alliance here.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Good.
I get like coaches looking at me, but no, I'm not. I haven't used that.
Yeah. So doesn't matter whether you use it or not. You're in the right group. Now the question is how to make your off season so that it's more full body. And I think
Yes.
that improved my skiing. And I'm at the age where I don't expect my skiing to improve a whole lot year to year. I'm just happy just to hold on to where I'm at
Keep it up. Yeah.
and stay injury free. Don't get hurt. That's the key thing. And part of that is, okay, ski at 80%, not 100%,
Yeah.
and make sure your 80% is at a really high level. That has a lot to do with maintaining quick twitch muscles, mobility, flexibility, strength through a range of motion, having that explosiveness, what's called responsive or reflexive strength index, where your body responds well to forces. Because skiing, like a lot of sports, is really about managing external force, right?
100%. Yeah. Like one of my goals is to be able to ski past 90. And like I heard of this guy. I actually haven't met him, and I would like to. Hopefully, he's alive. This guy that was well past 90. He would ski down. Have you been to Sunshine Village up here in Alberta?
I'm not, no.
So there's skiers that are called Sunshine Village, and the hardest part in there is called Delirium Dive, which is double black.
Uh-huh.
And this 90-some-year-old would ski down Delirium on his birthday every year. When I heard that, I was like, that is freaking amazing. So it is a goal for me. And then I heard the likes of Peter Attia and Andrew Huberman saying that you lose about a 1% muscle mass every year past 40. So
Yeah.
you got to keep up and work out and take enough protein to maintain it. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I should start working out because I could see that my upper body was pretty weak and I want to keep skiing and all that. So because I want to be up and running. I hate to be grounded and like be like
I encourage people to go on YouTube and find a fitness influencer that they love and not be afraid to change every month. I mean, just the
mhm.
motivation you get. And I've got my group that I think are wonderful, but there's a lot of very good advice on YouTube and a lot of really bad advice.
Oh yeah,
That's like any source of information, but generally a well-rounded routine where you are working both cardiovascular strength, mobility, mobility meaning flexibility and strength through
yeah,
motion. Balance is something a lot of people don't pay attention to, and that gets
hundred
incredibly
percent.
important. As well as things like very specific to your sport, like reflexive strength index, that explosiveness, that quick twitch, that declines a lot as we get older, and I start to feel it now. Like my mind knows what to do, but my body's like, I'm not sure we're going to do it that quickly.
Probably not doing that. Like I think in sports and in life, I think knowing our limits is a pretty good skill.
And the
especially when you're
metaphor carries into entrepreneurship very closely. So
100%.
my experience is the best entrepreneurs have played sports. I loved to recruit women who were in ballet or played collegiate sports. I love to recruit sales teams that came out of people that came out of sports, because they tend to have their ego in check. They realize that it's about the game. It's about the game of winning,
Oh yeah.
not about your own personal ego.
Yeah, we go to gym 3, 4 days a week, and I see some people lifting way beyond their limit. And sometimes if I'm in a mood, I would run up quickly, be like, "Bro, you're gonna hurt yourself."
Yeah,
You
form
know,
matters. Yeah,
you know.
so again, I ski a lot in Cat Val, and I was uh, on there's yellow run. So in Europe, the yellow is beyond black, so it'd be what we'd
Oh
call
yeah,
a
okay.
triple black. And there's places you climb, you can climb out of the yellow and drop into these chutes and back in the back
Yep.
country. And, it was not safe. It was, I did not have my Avi pack with me, and I was not going into that space. And there was people on the lift, and they heard my accent when I speak French. I have a terrible English accent or American accent. And they switched over to English, and they said, "Hey, can you help us with this particular run?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can help you by telling you don't go. You know,
Perfect.
this is not the time to take that risk."
That's the best
Um,
I could do for you right
yeah,
now.
best I can do for you right now is, look, I live here. I won't. I skied that 3 weeks ago. I won't ski it right now because the avalanche risk is just through the roof. They're like, "Yeah, but the
Mhm.
avalanche risk on the website's only like a 2." I'm like, "Yeah,
That can
I don't
kill
care
you.
about the I care about the boundary layers. I care about what's in the snow, what I see, and I see all this. Here's the signs that it's dangerous."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's interesting that that's true in entrepreneurship too. Is that if you're going into a business and no one else is there, it's like going into a chute where there's no tracks. There's a reason for that, right? That's where you probably run into the greatest risk. And the people that suffer avalanche casualties are more likely to have gone through avalanche safety training because they have this false sense of security. And the
Oh, yeah.
same with entrepreneurship. A lot of people, entrepreneurs, will take risks that are just absolutely no one else is doing it for a good reason, and that's where they fail. So
Oh, yeah.
hopefully people hear this and think, okay, if there's no competitors, it's a bad market. Don't go after it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, people take a training and they think they're bulletproof, or they've just been training at a gym with their legs, and now they think they're bulletproof through the bumps. We're
Right.
like,
Yeah.
take it easy.
Yeah.
Look,
Bumps
I know
are
we're.
great. I live for moguls, but
Oh,
moguls
I
and
love it
bumps
too.
come together. That's what my life is.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I know we're kind of running out of time. Let's talk briefly, very briefly, about the promise of the show. We talked about to retire happy, healthy, and wealthy. Give
Yep.
us your 2-minute version on that because we are out of time.
So do a little bit every day to fulfill your goals. And my wife, I was telling her about how I was proud of how I had achieved a certain physical goal of mine, physical fitness goal. And she's like, "Well, you're doing Atomic Habits." I couldn't get through the book. Couldn't get through the book, but it turns out that the idea of doing a little bit every day, whether you're learning French or whether you're trying to get fit or you're trying to build a business, is really important. I thought I would bring a couple books that I think are important to read.
Please.
Here's it. One, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl,
Great
probably my
one.
favorite book of all time. Every time I think I'm having a bad day, I think about the stories that are told in this book, and I realize this is what character is to overcome hardship.
Hmm.
Radical candor. A lot of people are afraid to have a hard conversation. So Kim Scott wrote this wonderful book about caring and being truthful.
Hmm.
The hard thing about hard things.
Great book.
Success is really hard. And there's a reason for that. And it's actually a good thing that it's hard. And this book, I think, is a really great reminder of why it's important to start with the hard things in life and get those things done. And then what I really liked was Principles by Ray Dalio.
Yes.
Ray sat down and said, "Okay, here's my life philosophy. And I'm writing this down as a model for you to write your own life philosophy." And I think that if more of us sat down and wrote our philosophy down of what are the principles by which we want to live our life, we'd live in a more principled world. And that's a good thing for everybody. I think that a lot of bad behaviors that we do to each other are as a result of forgetting about what principles matter most to us.
That was a really, really profound thing you said. Sit down and write down your philosophy.
Yeah.
That is
What's
profound.
important to you in life? Another book that I think is really good, if I can find it on Q, is Measure What Matters. And I'm not going to find it on Q, but the idea of, okay, let's set an objective. And what are the key results if we achieve that objective?
Yes,
And create measurements that take us to that place.
100%.
And it was written by a VC, and it was, I think, is used at Google and a bunch of other places. But let's push all of that bullshit out of the way. Just the simple idea of have 3 objectives in your life every quarter that you're trying to achieve, whether it's in business or your personal life. So yesterday was my anniversary with my 12-year anniversary with my wife, and we just had the most amazing dinner because we were talking about the objectives that we have outside of career and work and what are the key results and how we're going to measure our way to get there. I'm like, my God, I married the perfect woman. I married an engineer because she's thinking about these problems the same way I am. And I think that that's a really important way to go through life.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Amazing. I want to go back to that line that you said, write down your philosophy. I think a lot of times we don't know what our thoughts and philosophies are until we write it down and physically and tangibly look at it. Be like, either, oh, this is great, or be like, holy shit, this is what I think. And then you can work on refining it.
So in America, we have a lot of conversation around the crisis of loneliness and the diseases of despair, drug addiction, and so forth. I feel very wealthy because I have so many people I really know are very close friends, a rich life of friends. I think one of the keys there is understanding who we want in our lives and understanding the currency we bring to each other. So as a friend, I bring a certain currency, and I want to attract people that are complementary to that. We don't need to be all the same, right? That's a very poor life if everybody's the same. I want to have people from different backgrounds, different perspectives, different ways of looking to make my world a little richer and a little understanding things from different perspectives. But to do that, I need to have the core principles figured out of who I am and who I want to become. Because who I am is something that's always going to be changing. And I thought Ray did a really good job in his book. And maybe this is just an old man talk. Maybe this is something that only happens when you get to be about 60 years age. You're like, all right, this is who I am. And this is where I want to go in my life. I still have dreams of who I want to become in the future and dreams of how I'm going to develop myself. But it changes. Different chapters of life have different senses of being. And there's a beauty in every age. But if you're 40 years old starting a business, be aware that that's a chapter, and you need to have principles of what are you going to achieve in that chapter and how you get, and if you're lucky enough to survive long enough, to how do you get to the next chapter?
Love it. Love it. Olin, what's one piece of advice that made a big impact on your life or business?
Focus wins. I had a guy that was running marketing for one of my companies, and he just wasn't hitting the numbers. And we had a conversation, one of those tough conversations. And well, you've given me too many objectives. Like, okay, why is that a problem? He's like, focus wins. And it hit me like, and I was probably, I don't know, this is probably 15, 20 years ago. I'm like, it just hit me like, wow, can't believe I made that mistake. And so I actually went and had a suit made, and on the lapel, I had the embroidered focus wins to remind myself that whenever I'm losing, it's probably because I didn't focus on the right thing. And if I'm focused on the right thing and I'm losing, that's a loss that I can learn from.
That was beautiful. Focus wins. And I think I'm a huge fan of simplicity. I got a book called Simple Marketing Formula. The idea is to simplify your marketing and get rid of chaos so you can focus on the vital few. So we could probably talk about that for another 2 hours. Olin, this was a great conversation. I feel like that we could easily talk another 2 hours, but
let's go ski together. We
should definitely.
Let's take some turns together.
I'll take you up on that.
Sounds like I might be able to learn something from you since you're an instructor.
We could work on ski improvements and talk business and marketing all day. And I'll be happy to take you out into the Rockies and ski some champagne powder and you know, just shoot the shit and have fun and talk business.
Well, I brought 2 pair of skis back with me from Switzerland. One's a pair of all mountain skis, and then I brought my powder skis just in hopes.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it. Where can people find out more about you, what you do, and get in touch?
They can always contact me on LinkedIn is probably my preferred way. That's kind of one way. My email's Olin Hyde, OLINHYDE at Gmail, and I do read all my emails. Those are
Beautiful.
probably these way. I'm not a big social media guy. I think that I do recognize that it's important for a lot of people, but I'm not really concerned about publishing my life. But LinkedIn's a great way to reach me. Email me. I'm a real person, so we can always have that conversation. Don't spend a lot of energy on my website or any of that stuff. I'd rather be skiing.
Love it, gang. Thank you for joining us. This Olin, thank you for this conversation. I truly enjoyed it. You shared a ton of value bombs and great things that people could do and take action on. Gang, do reach out to Olin on LinkedIn, send a friend request, send an email, get in touch. And Olin, I do look forward to a ski day where we could, explore more and see what the future will transpire.
Thanks so much, man. You rock.
Likewise, gang, you've been listening to the Executive Hub Show. Your host, Mustafa Hosseini, here with my guest, Olin Hyde. Hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you on our next episode. Bye now.
Bye.